processing industry is needed, is necessary for reducing the farmers' distress. So development of the food processing industry is necessary for reducing the farmers' distress. So if you want to reduce the farmers' distress, one of the thing that is necessary is the food processing industry, and you will have to comment on this. We'll have to comment on this. So comment that whether food processing industry will help in reducing the farmer distress, right? The keywords have been highlighted. The keywords are food processing industry. The second keyword is reducing the farmer distress. So if I start that every question has an about dimension and an approach dimension. The about dimension is that what is the question talking about? What is the question mentioning about? Here the question is talking about the food processing industry. It is mentioning about the food processing industry. And the approach dimension is whether the food processing industry will reduce the farmer distress. Whether this will be possible through the reducing the farmers distress will be possible through the food processing industry, and we'll have to comment on this. Comment, you can agree and you can disagree. Okay, how far do you agree, how far do you disagree, it comes under the comment part, right? So now moving on to the storyline. Like every question you can develop any storyline. You can start with fact, you can start with context, you can start with definition. My suggestion to you would be, if the term is very obvious, don't go for the definition. And it is the storyline. In the storyline, the intro and the conclusion, that makes up a difference. So the storyline one can be, you can start about a fact. You will say a fact that so many industries have led to this percentage of the reduction in the farmers' distress. And then you try to draw a diagram, any type of diagram, to give a visual depiction to the answer, and then you establish a link between the food processing industries and the farmers' distress. So what is the link? How will the food processing industry reduce the farm's distress, right? Then, and what if this is correct? If FPI can reduce the farm distress, what are the steps needed? What steps should we take to actually make the food processing industry a enabler? Okay, that is one part. The other type of story can be context. Context, okay, we have this much of farm distress, we have this much of distress migration, and you know, there is the food processing industry in so and so region has reduced the farm distress. That you can mention, followed by a diagram. That is something for your visual depiction. This is the main demand of the question. And what steps have been taken? We have taken many steps to promote the food processing industry. What steps have been taken? That can help you develop a second story line. What are the common mistakes that a student do? See, the question was, the food processing industry will help in reducing the farm distress, right? So the students, they will only say, okay, this will solve this problem. Problem 1, it will be solved. Problem 2, it will be solved. Problem 3, it will be solved. Remember, it's a geography paper, right? In geography paper, if you can bring the regional perspective, that will help you develop the examples and case studies in a better manner, like the food processing industries and the farm distress. So the link is the food processing industry and the farm distress reduction. Farm distress reduction. So if this has to be done, can we not say, if this is the map of India, food processing industry will lead to different level of intervention in different regions. So food processing industry here, this can reduce poverty. It can reduce poverty. Okay. Food processing here, it can increase the shelf life of the horticulture, increase the shelf life of, for example, apples. Okay. The food processing industry here, this can connect the market and raw material in a better manner. So this way, if you go for regional dimension, you get many innovative points, you get many good regional examples also. So this is one of the common mistakes that it is done by the student, that they tend to forget the regional perspective. My suggestion to you would be, wherever you can, try to bring in the regional dimension, try to use the local examples, try to use the local case studies. Now with this, I am moving on to the question. I'm first explaining the draft 1. So the draft 1 that I'm trying to explain here, I will point out the flaws in this draft. What are the flaws in this draft? Let's understand this by the question. The question is development of the food processing industry. The development of the food processing industry is necessary. Is necessary for what? For reducing the farm distress, and we'll have to comment on it. So we have to comment. We'll have to say yes, no, somewhat. Okay, somewhat. So development of FPI, food processing industry, is necessary for reducing the farm distress. Comment. So the introduction has been quite good, that with 11.12% of the total arable land in the world, it is not related to India alone. Okay, so you can relate it to the world. If the Indian dimension has not been given in the question, you can relate it to the world also. So the 11.12% of the total arable land in the world have more than 80% of the farmers are distressed. Okay, so we have only 11% of land arable and 80% of the farmers are distressed, and they have this poor income, they have this poor employment. Okay. Therefore, if we can promote the food processing industry, it will help the farmers in increasing the output, and it will help the farmers to improve the farm conditions. And then reduction in the farm distress by FPI. There is a diagram, the hub and spoke diagram. What will FPI do? It will reduce the variability, okay, variability of the output. It will increase the shelf life. It will increase the shelf life of the products. Okay. It will rather help establish a link between the raw material and finished good. So how will it will help in reducing the farmers' distress? That can be written about. Then the student has very smartly tried to fit in the table format. This is also fine. This is also fine, provided you have the luxury of the space in your answer sheet. So what the student has done is, they have written about the distress. They have written about distress. They have written about the solution. What is the distress? The distress is poor yield, low return. This is distress. There is lack of storage facility. There is lack of remunerative market. There is lack of investment. There is lack of alternative employment. So all the farmers distressed have been listed. There is lack of poor investment, there is lack of market connect, there is lack of storage facility, poor yield, and how will FPI help? So the solution by FPI, it will help in diversification of the non-food crop. That will help higher values. If there is lack of storage, it will lead to higher shelf life. Okay, higher shelf life, then the products will not be destroyed. There is lack of remunerative market. So you can take help of the FPOs, food processing organization, to market the product. If there is lack of investment, then the investment has been taken. There has been investment from the Amazon in Andhra and Karnataka that has led to high GVA. So there is lack of investment in agriculture. But FPI can be one of the ways where the investment can be done, and there has been investment by the Amazon. Then if there is lack of alternative employment, too much dependence on the farm, then also the FPI can reduce disguised unemployment. The FPI can lead to diversification of the employment. However, the question was comment. So is food processing industry a panacea? No, the food processing industry is not the panacea food processing industry also suffers from some of the limitation. The food processing industry that suffers from limitation are the, what are the limitation? The limitation, there can be limitation on the supply side, there can be limitation on the demand side. On the supply side, only some level of processing is done, low level of processing, very low level of processing. Okay. Then there is lack of, okay, there is over regulation. Even supply side, you can say there is, the raw material is also not constant. The raw material is not constantly available. So there is supply side issue, there is demand side issue. Still India does not have very high demand for the processed food. Okay? And then there is a conclusion says that we need Sampada, we need APIDA, we need FDI, we need many other schemes, or we have these many schemes, and this will help in developing the FPI. However, this answer I would rate as average. Why average? Because this is known by many students. Nothing rocket science, all of you know this. Okay. What is the good answer? The good answer is this. The good answer is, if you try to bring the examples, if you try to bring the regional dimensions. Okay, so the regional dimension is something that you will have to bring about. Okay, so development of food processing industry is needed for reducing the farmers' distress. So here the food processing industry, it can help in reducing the farmers' distress. Here, if you can establish the farmers' distress, if you can establish, yes, there is farmers' distress, and this will how the industry help, that would bring in perfect dimension to it. So there is 11.12% of the total arable area in the world, and 80% of the farmers are distressed. Okay, it is 80% of the farmers are distressed in India. We have this much percentage of the land, but still these in the world, if you see, 11% of the land is arable. Okay, but 80% of the farmers, we have around 2.4% of the world area. Okay, we have arable land also very high. Still the farmers are distressed. The farmers are distressed because there is lack of food processing. There is lack of food processing, and the food processing is still at the nascent stage. It is still at the nascent stage, and less than 10% of the farm output is processed in India. And therefore, this is establishing the link between the food processing industry. It is establishing the link between the agriculture and the distress of the farmer. And what do we need? We need reduction, and we can say that the FPI can help in reduction of the distress. The FPI can help in reduction of the farmers' distress. What are farmers' distresses? The farmers' distresses is there is post-harvest losses. We don't have after the harvest, if we don't have the storage facility, there is losses. There is lack of the institutional and the structural support. Okay, MSP, you know it is there, but is it implemented properly? Not necessarily in all the areas. There is apprehension over the farm laws. Okay, what will happen? There is price volatility. There is subsidies led wooing. Certain crops they are given more subsidies, certain crops they are not given subsidies. Only subsidy based support is left. That is also contributing to distress. Climate change, like the temperature and rainfall, is also variable, and it is causing farmers distress. Now, can food processing industry solve all this? No. Can food processing industry solve some of these? Yes. Is food processing industry necessary? Yes. Is food processing industry panacea? No. That's what you have to establish in the comment part. So here let's proceed to the answer. So here again very smartly drawn the table. So table drawn, and here many examples have also been given. There has been example of the Amazon, there have been example of Andhra Pradesh. The same points that has been repeated, that the poor yield of the farmer and the low returns. So here the farmers, they have poor yield. The farmers, they don't have storage facility. There's lack of remunerative markets. This can be solved by FPIs. right? The poor yield, if there is poor yield, what will the food processing industry do? It will go for diversification. If there is lack of storage facility, what will it do? It can go for better nutritional value. Then if there is lack of remunerative markets, if there is lack of remunerative market for the end products, the FPOs, they can help market the finalized product. If there is lack of investment, there are certain investments which are available. So this is the issue in the farm. These are the issue: input, output, investment, market, storage. That all issues can be on a limited scale fulfilled by the food processing industry. There is also lack of employment, alternative employment that is not available. There is disguised employment. Okay, there is disguised employment. So it is likely to, food processing industry is likely to generate more employment in the sector. Okay. However, we have already seen the question is comment. You can talk about the issues, the supply side issues, like the food processing is not yet all modernized. There is lack of modernization. There is lack of secondary processing for the food grains. There are other issues like the level of processing is very low, less than 10%. There is high cost of packaging. So packaging cost is high. The process is still low. There is lack of modernization for the FPI industry, and also our preference is for fresh fruits rather than the food processed item. That is the demand side issue, right? And majority of the population in India, they do not have as much income. So how will it reduce the farm distress? Nobody would buy. There are no takers. That is the issue with the FPI industry. So it is not a panacea, though it can be a good option in the future. And for this, we have come up, many schemes have come up, like the Sampada Yojana, like the 100% FDI, the APIDA. This have been established. These are the steps that have been taken to reduce or to promote the FPI, with a vision to reduce the farm distress. I hope you like this video. A very key takeaway from this video is, if you can bring the local examples, if you can bring the case studies, that will help you develop better points. I hope you like this video. Stay tuned. Thank you.